I was the first person in my family to get the opportunity to go to college and graduate school. And I was the first woman in my family that didn't go straight from her father's home to her husband's home. I know my grandma Susie was really proud of that, and so is my mom, and so am I. As a white upper middle class woman, I was well educated, earning a high income, and I had good credit. And the only reason that I mention that is because I was anything but the stereotype that many people think about when they think about a domestic violence survivor. The truth is, many survivors are strong, independent, educated, hardworking people just like me. They aren't all lonely, insecure, and seeking love desperately in their lives. They're just working for the same things we all want in life and looking for a partner to share it all with. Unfortunately, many of them, just like me, don't know that there are predators out there masquerading, pretending to be someone looking for the same things that we are. I certainly didn't know. But now that I do, I want to make sure as many people as possible know they're out there. Predators are out there. Yes, I use the word survivor. I hate the term victim. I refuse to use it in reference to myself or any other survivor. And I don't allow other survivors to use it in my presence. So if you're still using the term victim, I urge you to please consider changing that language. The truth is that domestic violence survivors come in all shapes, sizes, ages, races, religious and ethnic backgrounds. They come from all education and income levels. Survivors can be male or female, gay or straight, young or old, rich or poor. They can be anyone. They're not just the shy cashier that can't look you in the eye when you're checking out. Some of them can be competent professionals like doctors and lawyers. And that's especially true when it's a financial abuse situation. In fact, it's estimated that 99% of domestic violence cases also involve some form of financial abuse. If you never heard the term financial abuse, you're not alone. 75% of Americans have never heard that term. So, what's financial abuse all about? It's about the same thing that domestic violence, sexual assault, and emotional and verbal abuse are about: control. You might say, well, if someone intimidates you, threatens you with emotional, physical, sexual violence, or tries to control you, why don't you just leave? The truth is, financial abuse is almost always the reason why a survivor stays or returns to their abuser. If someone can control you, your finances, your credit, your transportation, access to health care or food benefits or whatever it is you need for yourself or your children, they can get you to stay in a situation that's not healthy for you or for them. In my own situation, I was the breadwinner. I was the one with the high income. I was the one with the good credit. Everything went into my name, including the home we both eventually shared. We had an agreement to share those expenses, but that never happened. And I had to make some tough financial decisions. Should I work harder to try to pay my bills and save my credit? Should I pay late and incur late fees? Should I default on my student loan? Should I apply for bankruptcy? These are tough choices. Unfortunately, a lot of survivors have to make decisions like this. I know, you're probably thinking, okay, Suze, if you're so smart and educated and independent, how the heck did you get mixed up with a guy like this in the first place? All right, fair enough. Actually, this is a question that I and a lot of other survivors have to grapple with for years after we're free of our abusers. And I finally came to the conclusion the truth is, abusers don't come with warning labels. They don't have loser tattooed across their forehead. They don't hand you a report card where all of their exes tell you that they're lazy, they don't want to work, they're pretending to be someone or something that they're not, that they have an alcohol problem, a depression problem, or even a drug problem. And these are serious things. But they hide it until you're in a committed relationship. They can be charming, they can be smart, funny. A lot of them are romantic or attractive. They're chameleons. They become the thing that they think that you're looking for. They disguise themselves as everything a successful person might want in a partner. But they're really dangerous predators. We need to teach our children when they start dating that some people are just not who they say they are. You know how when you first fall in love, everything is like too good to be true? It's like your dreams are finally coming into reality and you think you finally found the one. You feel like maybe this relationship will be the last one that you're ever in. You're full of optimism and hope. Your partner just gets you. He or she understands you. And it's exciting and it's a happy time. But it's hard because you have to tell young people in particular that if someone seems too good to be true, they might actually be lying to you. You have to listen carefully to your gut instincts and listen to the people around you who love you. And don't be afraid to question things that don't seem right or don't add up. Look twice before you leap into a big commitment, especially living together or getting married. The truth is, you don't have to be a cynic to practice healthy skepticism. And a little bit of skepticism could save you a lot of heartache later, or it might even save your life. In my own case, my partner was tender and loving and kind. He was a gentle spirit. He made me feel special and cherished and loved, and even safe. To this day, the hardest part for me is that I'll never know what, if any of it, was true of him. It could have all been a lie from the beginning, for all I know. More and more, I tend to think that he really was a lot of those things at heart. But somewhere along the line, he also learned that he could manipulate and control people into getting the things that he wanted in life. And what he really wanted was someone to take care of and provide for him. He wanted a sugar mama. You know, having been a teacher and a student for most of my adult life in one form or another, homework has just been a regular part of my life. I always do my homework. I do it to the best of my ability. I turn it in on time. I listen closely to the feedback from teachers and students alike. And that's why to this day I could kick myself that I didn't do my homework on my partner. Before it got really serious, I should have looked. I know, it sounds so unromantic to check your dream boat out. You know what else is unromantic? Being financially taken advantage of. Being left with huge debt to pay. Having damaged credit for years to come. Not so romantic. You know what else isn't romantic? Being beaten, being raped, turning up on the evening news is just another statistic. In my case, and in the case of many other survivors I've met, there was valuable information to be had if we had just asked the right questions. Please, if you're single or you care about someone who is, do your homework. Don't take everything your partner says at face value. Almost every one of these abusers has a history of domestic violence. Do a background check before it gets serious. Many of these people have arrest records to prove it. And financial abusers have a history of poor credit, sporadic work, low income. They have a string of friends and family and exes that'll tell you that they mooched off of them for years. Just like with domestic violence, financial abuse can happen to women as well as to men. The truth is, you might be surprised how many men are in financially abusive relationships with over-demanding partners. See, you're not alone. It can happen. Take steps to get help if you're in that situation. And make sure everybody in your life knows to never get themselves in a similar one. When I first met my partner, he told me that he was a small business owner and that he had a home and had moved his mom in with him after his father passed so that he could take care of her. He told me that he'd had some long-term relationships, and he also told me that he thought I was his dream girl, and it was a great thing that we met when we did because he was about to give up on romantic relationships altogether. I had no reason to doubt him, but when I look back, I had no reason to believe him either. The truth is, I didn't really know him. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because he gave me no reason not to. Yet, if I had simply asked his mom or his sister or his best friend, they would have told me that he actually worked for a friend of his who was the real business owner. And that business really wasn't doing all that well. And that between the two of them, they drank and smoked most of their profits away. They would have told me that he'd only lived on his own for a very short period of time during his life, and that his mother actually subsidized that apartment towards the end before he returned home to the house that he grew up in. And it was she who was taking care of him, not the other way around. They would have told me that she was enabling him to be a do-nothing, a chain smoker, and an alcoholic. I would have learned that his relationships were usually just a few months long, and the few that did go long-term eventually failed because of his alcoholism, his refusal to work or save money or become independent of his mom. He had a history of domestic violence and financial abuse, and an arrest record as well that I didn't know about. He'd even been to AA at one point in his life and was sober for 3 years before we ever even met. And I didn't even know that he was an alcoholic until after we moved in together. Yet, all I had to do was ask the right questions. Can I be honest with you? I really wish I didn't have this story to tell. The truth is, I now belong to a worldwide sisterhood that I never wanted to join. I can divide my life into two halves. The half before domestic violence and financial abuse touched me, and since. Once you experience the things that I experienced, you can never be the same again. You can't go back to that place of ignorance is bliss. You can't ever watch the evening news the same way again. Every night when you see that domestic violence story, you think about how it could have been you, and about how the grieving friends and family being interviewed could have been your own. I think it's important for people to know what financial abuse is and how it relates to domestic violence. If it could happen to me, a professional, educated woman, it could happen to anybody. I'd rather not talk about this because there really is still a stigma out there about domestic violence survivors. But if I can tell my story to survivors and advocates, legislators, and others who might find themselves in similar situations, I might be able to make it just a little bit better for that worldwide sisterhood. I tell my story because I want to say to them, you can and you will survive because you're worth it. No offense to the first responders and doctors and nurses, counselors, financial advisors that are part of my story. I appreciate each one of them for the role that they played in my survivorship and in my comeback. But I want to emphasize that at the end of the day, I saved myself. I found the will to fight for my survivorship on the worst night of my life, and to come back from the horrible and far-reaching consequences of that day. I appreciate those of you who work to help survivors like me. Your work is incredibly valuable. Please never forget that. Also, please never forget that your work is not about rescuing a victim. It's about empowering a survivor. The truth is, every survivor ultimately has to save themselves. First, you have to make the decision. It's a choice that says, I can and will survive this. And then you have to say to yourself, why? Because I'm worth it. And once you know that, really know that, find a friend or an advocate to walk with you and make a plan. You need a safety plan and you need a financial plan. You need help for your physical, emotional, and spiritual journey. Back to yourself, back to wholeness. The hardest part is taking that first step. So take a very small one, and then another and another. And before you know it, you'll be moving forward towards saving yourself. As you do, more and more help will be there. The universe will make sure. But make the decision today. Save yourself, because you're worth it. There's a saying that says, nobody's going to care how much you know until they know how much you care. The skills that you have as a first responder or doctor or nurse or advocate, counselor, financial advisor, they're valuable. But they're not going to make a difference until you make that connection with the person that's right in front of you. Until you listen and hear what they have been through, you're not going to make a difference. You have to let them know that they can and they will save themselves, and that you were there to offer a hand up, not a handout, to teach them how to fish rather than hand them over a fish. That you're going to be there and be a supporter and a cheerleader and an advocate, an advisor, a friend. And that you're not going to judge and you're not going to be a know-it-all. If you haven't been a survivor, you don't know that fear. You don't know the trauma. You don't understand how the survivor's sense of safety and trust is destroyed. Your world is forever changed after a domestic violence situation. Suddenly, monsters and predators aren't just strangers out there. They're in your inner circle. And there's nothing scarier than that. You don't know about the long journey back that touches every single part of a survivor's life. And even if you're like me and you have your own survivorship story to tell, it's not about you anymore. It's about the ones that come after you. Just because you could relate to parts of my story or theirs doesn't mean you'll ever grasp the whole of it, because it's theirs uniquely. That doesn't mean that you don't have valuable things to offer and give. It's super important that you acknowledge, though, that you're just the instrument of healing. You are the ones who get to see and hear survivor stories directly from them. You witness the best and worst of the human condition. Advocacy and legislation that you're a part of may affect the masses, and that's wonderful. But the one that's hurting directly in front of you in this moment, they're the most important one. Finally, I want to thank you all for your time and attention today. The fact that you stayed this long with me means that you're really committed to helping survivors, and I appreciate that. And if you don't mind, in conclusion here, I would like to share a few things that I learned along the way. One is, nobody can get through this by themselves. So you need a friend to walk with you. And the sooner you get one, the better. Others are going to join along the way, but you need at least one from the start. And even if you don't have friends or family nearby to help you, professional advocates are there for you. Reach out. Take a step at a time. The journey of 1,000 miles is always going to start with that first step. How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And the healing process and the road to come back isn't always linear. You know, there's going to be setbacks. It's just life, right? Know that these processes take time. They can't be rushed. And that's just the truth. It's okay to feel grief and loss for the relationship, your sense of safety and trust, for your independence or your credit or the crushing debt, whatever it is that grieves your heart. It's okay to feel that. These things take time to accept. And it's okay to move slowly, but keep moving forward. Set clear goals for yourself and tell your advocate what they are, or maybe he or she will help make them with you. And then celebrate each one as you achieve it. And then finally, realize you're never going to be the same. You're forever changed. But it doesn't have to be a bad thing. You can take what you now know and what you have learned and experienced and help others. You can and you will rebuild your life because you're worth it. Thank you.